Hey everyone, welcome to Our Small Footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a large family living off-grid in Australia. Now, I'm going to try and do a what we eat in a week. I don't succeed at them real well a lot of the time because I tend to forget to pull the camera out when I'm making a meal. So I have to be really mindful about it and have to remember to film each meal, and then I have to remember to keep the footage and put it all together. So we're not real great at it, but we're going to give it a go. In my what we eat in a weeks, we don't tend to do breakfasts unless I'm baking something specific for breakfast because the kids help themselves. Sonnet will make pancake bake, or they'll have yogurt and granola, or they'll have instant porridge, or anything that I've prepared, some leftovers, things like that, or they have straight cereal. So generally speaking, I don't film breakfasts. We go from brunch onwards. So the kids generally have a second breakfast, which is normally Darryl and my lunch, and I tend to film that sort of thing. Dinner, the occasional snack, the occasional dessert. So we'll go with that. There is 7 of us at home. And we shop once every 6 to 8 weeks. So everything is made as we need it. We are more of an ingredient household than a food household, which does mean that most things require prep. And that's just the way it is and the way it's always been for us out here, especially for the last few years. And we've gotten used to it, and the kids are pretty self-sufficient with making food from something that's in the fridge or freezers if they need to. And I buy lots of those single ingredients that they can use to do so. You know, worst comes worst, there's always noodles. So, you know, we don't buy flavoured noodles, but we do buy noodles that they can make flavour with, using pesto, using eggs, using mayo, whatever they want. Editing me coming in to say that this video has been extraordinarily long-winded for what we eat in a week, and it's sort of not a set week, it's just like a week's worth of meals, kind of. Anyway, it's a bunch of different meals condensed in to be a bit like, well, I always call them like a magazine spread. So when you're flicking through a recipe magazine looking for just, you know, inspiration, that's sort of what these are supposed to be. So very long-winded, but it's what happened. So it is, what day are we? We are the 10th, I think it's a Thursday, and I'm going, and it is almost lunchtime. I haven't eaten lunch yet, but I've got other things that I'm filming today, so I just wanted to get this out of the way, and I'm going to make some pizza dough for dinner tonight. So it's quite cool. So if I make it now at lunchtime, it should be ready to go tonight for dinner, which isn't ideal. Preferably I'd like it to sit in the fridge for a few hours or overnight. It just does a better flavour and stuff, but it's what it is, so we will see. So I've mixed all my ingredients in to my bowl here, and I have a standard pizza base that gives me 8 250 gram balls, and that's what I've got here. I really need to get it up on the website, but this is my standard pizza style, and it's a Napolitana pizza, I suppose. Basically, because we do it in the pizza box over the barbecue, so that's what it ends up looking like. So everything's thrown in here. I'm going to knead this together, and I'm going to put it aside to proof, and I'll shape it later, and I'll show you that. And then I'm going to get on with the rest of what needs to get done today, which is a different video. So that's why this is a little bit of a juggle sometimes too, is jumping backwards and forwards between the two different types, the two different filming needs as well. So as I said, we'll see how we go. So pizza dough going in for dinner tonight. I will knead this up and I'll show it to you as I put it in the container. All right, dough's done. I'm just going to put it into one of my Canberra containers, and I'll probably just stick it in the oven with the pilot light on for the moment, and I'll see how it goes. Proofing wise, I used warm water, so we should be all good, but just gently greased my container. And there we go. Fairly low hydration dough. My pizza dough works quite well. Just going to get that covered with that oil, and then pop a lid on it and put it aside. So that will be dinner tonight. All right, pizza dough, nice and proofed. It doesn't have to be extensively proofed because we're going to shape it and then let it sit for longer as well. So this will work, and we want it into about 8. I do have scales to double check because it's just easier to have it all the same when you're trying to cook it, but it will end up in approximately 8 250 gram balls. So yeah, $2.59. $2.50. Alright, so then we've got 8 balls at around about the 250 grams, and all I do is I turn them into a nice firm ball for their second lot of sitting. So we're just going to do that. We have some semolina and a container. As per usual, I'm doing lots of different things in the bench at the same time. So we have some semolina here, and all I do is I coat the ball in the semolina like so, and place it in the container's proof, and repeat the process. So all 8 will end up in this container, ready for dinner tonight. There we go. So those go into the container. I'll let them sit half an hour, and then I'll probably put them in the fridge and pull them out half an hour before we're ready to eat. Alright, dinner. Pizza. We're going really super simple because I didn't pull any meat out of the freezer or anything. We are having basically pepperoni pizza, and that's it. So I did pull some, I got some pineapple off the shelf for the kids, and we have homemade pizza sauce, but then we just have a whole lot of pepperoni to be used up. So all I do is generously semolina the board, stretch it out, and we're going to top it. We use the pizza box on the barbecue from Bunnings. Works really well. It's a little inconvenient because you can only cook one pizza at a time because our barbecue is only big enough to have one on there, but they cook really quick, so it's still a little bit of a arduous meal to be making pizza, but it's worth it in the end. So you got chunky homemade pizza sauce, and then some pineapple for the kids, which we can when we have excess pineapples. And then we have all this pepperoni that we got from the Hampers, so it was $2 a bag. So we're just going to, now I haven't made any dairy-free cheese for the kids today, because with the canning, the day just got away from me. So we will offer, they'll have some mayo if they want it, and they're used to having pizza without cheese, so they will manage. So this is all I'm going to do today. Really super simple. Throw out pepperoni, pineapple, tomato sauce, and chuck them in the pizza oven. Kavik wanted to do a flourish for you, so there we go. And this is how they come out of the Bakerstone pizza box. It works really well. And we've got, the kids have all been served. Mine's always the last one, so that tends to be the one that I show you. And yeah, perfectly crispy, chewy, tasty. This was dinner for tonight. Alrighty, we're doing our normal pancake bake. This one I keep on saying I need to get on the website, and I keep on just not, and I apologise. So I've got Greek yogurt here. This is just from Costco, almost out. I'm going to have to make a batch of yogurt because we're going to be out. This stuff's not real great for eating as is, but it's good for this sort of thing. So we want 400 grams of Greek yogurt, nice and high protein. This is very forgiving, and it's very much a throw everything in. I've got a jar of pureed fruit. This is just berries, basically. I cannot open jars at the moment, so I'm having to break every lid to get it open. So we want a jar of fruit. We're going to then put a tablespoon of baking powder. We're going to put 6 eggs, a couple of scoops of protein powder. I'm going to use this mixed berry white top one because I think that that would be nice in this, but we use vanilla regularly, whatever we happen to have. Again, I use the Macromite because it's dairy-free, almond-based, so I like the texture of it, but no codes or anything for them because they didn't want to give it to me, which is fine. We want a pinch of salt and 350 grams of flour. 350 odd. Now, as I said, you can see, I think you can see the scales, everything has been just, you know, around about. And then we're just going to put the lid on it, mix it on speed 5 for 30 seconds. So 30 seconds, speed 5. And I'm going to grab a tray. So I've got a baking tray. Going to mix this up and then re-blend it, scrape the sides down, make sure everything is through with no lumps. So scrape, put it on for another 10 seconds or so, and then I'm going to grab some chocolate chips because they love those. And there we've got, so it's basically just looks like a standard pancake batter, and that is the goal. So then we pour it into a full tray. So these cast iron trays are Classica brand. I get asked that fairly regularly. They were inexpensive when I bought them, and I love them, and they're very similar to the American 9x13s. So most 9x13 recipes will fit in these fairly well. They aren't 9x13, not quite. For a start, they're in metric, and so when people make metric stuff, they just don't quite convert, but they are close enough to a 9x13 that they work. And we just scrape it all out. It goes in the oven at about 180 for about 45 minutes, and I will bring you back when it is all cooked up. All right, 45 minutes. I was supposed to get out of my jammies, which I said I was going to, and I didn't because I was editing, but so you've still got me in my dressing gown. So 45 minutes, and this is what it looks like. Should be cooked through because we found that 45 minutes is what has worked for us, though it is cooler today, and sometimes that affects the temperature of the oven, but it looks pretty good. So this is what we have. Obviously, if we let it cool a bit, it would be less gummy when you cut it, but the kids like it warm. So this is what we end up with, this fluffy chocolatey pancake bake. So that is their brunch / second breakfast for today. And I just cut it into squares. What they don't eat goes in the fridge, but generally speaking, they eat most of one of these between the 5 of them. And yeah, that's what we've got. All right. I defrosted a batch of butter chicken, so I'm going to heat this up, and then I've got the one pizza base dough here. I'm going to make a garlic naan out of that and a few other flatbreads, but also I might just cook the kids up a packet of pasta and they can have pasta with it, because it's already late. I was going to do a full batch of flatbread doughs, but it's 12:20 and I got stuff on, so I'm going to heat this up. And then, yeah, I think I'll just put some pasta on. They can have butter chicken pasta with a small flatbread each for lunch. And Darryl and I will just have some of this as well. Darryl can cook a thin piece of steak to have with it or something if that's what he wants. So let's get this into a pot first. So it is just my butter chicken. Now I normally can this, but I didn't can it last time because I can't remember, something happened and I just didn't get to it. So it's been frozen, which is fine, but it's been taking up a lot of room in the freezer, and it meant that I had to pull it out yesterday to use today, which always drives me a bit nuts. That planning ahead thing is not my forte. I'm just going to make a cheesy nani one for myself. So I'm just going to put some cheese in, pinch it, roll it, and I'll roll that out. I'll just let it rest for a bit. Just added a jar of plain chicken off the shelf just to extend it because we're winging lunch late. So we've just added some more chicken to the butter chicken mix, and we'll heat that through. I got water boiling for the ramen noodles and then these few flatbreads. Right, so Darryl pulled out some butter chicken. I've pulled out a bit of butter chicken. So now we've got the ramen noodles, and all I'm going to do is transfer them into this butter chicken, and they have butter chicken ramen, which should be tasty. All right, so we got butter chicken ramen. We have flatbreads, nice pizza dough flatbreads to go with it, and that's theirs. And then they will serve that up, and I have just some of the butter chicken here and a cheesy naan to have with it as well. So that is our lunch today. All right, dinner we're going to do, I pulled out 2 of these boneless chooks. They're the last 2 in the freezer, though I did put them out to defrost earlier today, and they're still not real defrosted, but it's fine. I'm going to cut them up to make them cook a little bit quicker. So they're a split boneless chook, so they're in pieces anyway. And I'm going to stick them on a baking tray as needed. Just like that, in the oven for about 40 minutes. All right, to have with the chicken for the kids, we're doing a baked risotto. So I'm going to throw in some ham that obviously didn't get bagged up before it went in the freezer, which is fine. So this is basically diced ham that's going to be used like a bacon base. And I cut up an onion as well. So we're just going to fry that off a bit, defrost that ham. I'll grab some garlic as well. Bit of garlic in there as well. And we'll get this just toasted off a bit, and then we'll add our stock. Alright, I've got a jar of chicken stock there, and I'm going to top that up with some water as well, and a little bit of vegeta, just because we want to intensify those salty flavors because it's a risotto. A second quart of water in there. We'll probably need a little bit more than that. And just couple of teaspoons of vegeta, and what we want to do is we want to bring this up to the boil before we add the rice, so I need to add a little bit more water in there. Once it's at a boil, we're going to add our rice. Now I'm just using whatever cup I found, which was a third, so I'm going to use like 9 to 12 of these. Looks about a good sort of volume there, so we end up with about 4 cups of rice, of arborio rice in there. And now we're going to put the lid on it and stick it in the oven for 35 minutes, and then it will be cooked to perfection all at once. Now I can make risotto in the Thermomix, and it's really nice, but I can only make about half this amount at any one time. So I just find this really easy, and considering we've got the chicken in the oven anyway, then the oven's running, so it's cooking the risotto and the chicken at the same time. All right, risotto done. So we've got this creamy rice here, and then what we're just going to do is add a little bit of ghee to it to add that extra creaminess, and then they can add some nutritional yeast in it too when they serve it. And then I'm just going to slice up that chicken and they can serve it with that. So that is dinner tonight. Just put a dollop of ghee there and mix that through. The lid will go back on and it'll sit for 5 minutes, and then we'll just serve it. So super simple risotto, and then the leftovers can be used for arancini balls or whatever the next day too. Alrighty, it is Saturday morning. Saturday morning. And we can do some lunch. So for lunch today, I'm going to do okonomiyaki. We've had these cabbages have been in the bottom of the chest fridge since I did the groceries last, which is like 5 weeks maybe. But these nice big drumhead cabbages that are stored in the appropriate way last somewhat indefinitely. You can see that they've started growing roots because it's a bit humid in the bottom of my chest fridge. A bit of water builds up. It's something we're trying to work on. It gets quite wet in the bottom. I've been putting some racks in there to put stuff up on top of to try and stop things from getting soggy, but the water, the condensation really builds up in the bottom of the fridge. I'm not entirely sure why. But anyway, the cabbages, so long as they're not in the water, which these weren't, they're up on a rack, last pretty much the whole 6+ weeks that we do the groceries. So they're great for all sorts of things. We use them to make ramen, we use them to make stir fries, all sorts of things. This morning though, I'm going to make some okonomiyaki. So all I'm doing is cutting them nice and fine. I can use the grater on the Thermomix to do this, but I find it's just a little bit time consuming for the job. Like, I just find that it's not worth pulling out or cleaning for the size of the job, because I'm only doing half a cabbage. That's plenty for a serve. Whereas if I was doing like a couple of cabbages worth or sauerkraut or something like that, then that would be perfect. But for just this amount, nice sharp knife, doesn't have to be particularly uniform. These pieces here, the kids and Darryl tend to come out and gnaw on those raw. They like them, those really crunchy bits, just raw. So all the finer stuff is what we turn into the okonomiyaki. So okonomiyaki is I've made videos on it before. I make it a lot. I haven't made it on channel for a while though, but I do make it a lot, and it's a Japanese vegetable pancake, cabbage pancake. There's heaps and heaps of ways you can make it. I do a really, really simple method, and then we top it however we want to top it, rather than having lots of flavour in the pancake itself. Normally I'd top it with chicken. I think I don't have any chicken defrosted, but I do think I've got some on the shelf, so I can always heat up some of that. But they're nice just on their own anyway, with a little bit of mayo, which I'll make with some of that cowboy candy from yesterday. And we'll just do this. So all I'm doing is cutting it fairly nice and fine. We want it fairly fine because it's going to be fried in a pancake sort of a situation. The finer it is, the better the batter sort of attaches itself to it. If it's too thick, then I find that sometimes it just doesn't hold together very well because the batter doesn't get in between the different strands of the cabbage. So we're going nice and fine. So I'm just going to finish cutting this up, and then I will grab a bowl and we'll move on to the next step. All right, with about half a cabbage, what I tend to use is a couple of cups of flour and just coat the cabbage with that bit of flour to start with. Then I would normally add soy sauce, but a big 2-litre one of ours got tipped over, and so we just don't have any at the moment. I'm going to add a tiny bit of Worcestershire, and then I'm going to add some Vegeta, which will give us a similar sort of salty, umami sort of a flavour that soy sauce would. It'll have to do. And then we add some eggs. So I've got half a dozen eggs here that I've cracked into a bowl. Just going to quickly break up the yolks, so that it blends better. And then we will probably do the same amount of egg. So we'll pour that in, and we'll top this bowl up with water. And that will give us a good start to our batter. Now, you can use a spoon, you can use whatever you want. I find that hands works really well, especially initially, because of the cabbage. You want to sort of squish this flour batter mixture into the cabbage. So once I've sort of got it blended a bit like this, then I will assess the texture and use a big mixing spoon. But I find initially that clean hands to get this all nice and combined. And now I'm going to add a little bit more water and a little bit more flour. now we've got more of a texture that's going to stick together in a pan. Now you can add whatever seasonings you want to this. You could add some onion, some pepper, some whatever you want. We, as I said, we tend to start basic and then we top it as we want to. So I'm just going to cook it off just like this. I like to get my pans fairly hot for my okonomiyaki, and I like to oil the pans because I like there to be a bit of a crunchy, crispy bottom to it. But if you like yours nice and soft, you don't want too much oil and you don't want too much heat. It depends on how you like to eat them. All I tend to do is grab a scoop, spread it out a bit in the pan, and that's it. We're going to fry them off. Again, size and texture really depends on you. Do you like them soft? Do you like them thick? Do you like them crispy? All of that. It's easy to just adjust it how you want, much like when you do any sort of a pancake or a fritter of any sort. So we're just going to let these fry off to my liking, and then we'll flip them. All right, so they start to cook around the edges like any sort of a fritter or a pancake, and you flip them. Super easy. Now, I really like these ones that are really oily and crispy. Some end up less so. My oven's on a little bit of a slope again. We need to adjust the feet, which means that the fat tends to pool a little bit this way, which is somewhat beneficial because it means that you get really crispy ones in this corner and less crispy ones on this side of the pan, and you know, I'll claim the crispy ones and they can have the rest. So this is all it is to it. Normally, as I said, we serve it up with some chicken, mayo, and some sweet soy sauce, things like that. I'm not sure what we're serving them up with today, but this is going to be lunch. Alrighty, that's them all cooked up for everyone to help themselves to. I'm not going to bother with putting anything on them other than I made up a bunch of like a fairly thin mayo with using the lemon juice cowboy candy leftovers, which is, it's quite tangy and be really nice, and basically just going to eat them like that. They're pretty tasty as is. So that is lunch today. The kids can help themselves. Alright, Saturday dinner. Going super simple. I've got a bag of, this is rotisserie chicken from Costco. I've got a kettle boiling. I'm going to quick defrost this so that I can pull it apart to fry it off. I'm going to use the other half of the cabbage and the mayo that I made today and do creamy ramen with chicken and cabbage. So I've got the lemony mayo that I made at lunch today, and the other half of the cabbage. They do sit all right in the fridge if you cover the cut face and stuff, but not real well. So you're better off using them fairly promptly. So, you know, slice this up and fry it off. Fry that chicken off as well, get some noodles going. Alright, the sauce. Now this is based on like a viral ramen dish that did the rounds on TikTok a long time ago now. Using ramen packets though. I don't use ramen packets. What I do is I use a few extra egg yolks. I use a good amount of homemade mayo. So basically we've just made the homemade mayo even richer. And then we're going to add some Vegeta. Now this is basically the flavor sachet from an instant noodle packet, and then some extra cowboy candy. So just some extra cowboy candy in there, and then we're just going to whisk this together. Now this is going to turn into a nice creamy sauce, very similar to the pesto pasta that we make, but with that creamy, spicy MSG type flavor. So I'm going to, once the noodles are cooked, I'll put them in there. So I put half a kilo of ramen noodles in some boiling water. I've got the chicken and the cabbage. We're getting there. So now we've got our ramen. I buy the Jin Mai Ling ramen noodles from Coles. They come in a 1 kilo for like $3 something. They are really nice, a really good texture. So I'm going to use the heat from the noodles to cook off these egg yolks and make this a sauce. So we want to take a decent amount of this noodle starchy water with the noodles as well, because that's going to create the sauce as well, otherwise it'll end up too thick. So you're going to use that water to loosen it up as well. Now we're only doing half a kilo of noodles here because we've got a lot of cabbage and stuff to add, so which is a whole lot better for them than the noodles. But the noodles are, you know, the thing that appeals. Ramen is always an appealing thing. So we've got that there. So then all we need is the other items that we're going to mix through. So we've got about half a kilo of the rotisserie chicken from Costco, all heated up. And we've got half a cabbage, all sauteed up and softened. And then all we're going to do is mix this through, get these noodles mixed through with all the cabbage and the chicken, add a bit more pasta water, more than likely, to loosen the dish up a little bit. And then this pot's been used for popcorn, can you tell? The bottom of the pot. Just like that. And then they can add a bit more mayo, a bit more salt, whatever they need to do. And they've got a cabbage ramen chicken dish for dinner. Darryl and I will probably just have steak. Friday morning, and we're going to make Dutch baby pancake. We have an overabundance of eggs. I really need to use some more. Now, when I was down getting the car a couple of weeks ago, Aldi had these cast iron sets on sale, and I got a friend grabbed a whole bunch for me. So I've got some new cast iron to add into my rotation. So I thought we would give one of these new ones a go. So pretty green cast iron roaster. So I'm going to give this a quick rinse before we put some ghee in it and get it heating up in the stove, and we'll make Dutch baby. All right, so we've got a big chunk of ghee in this. We're going to put this in the oven to heat up. So we've got 18 eggs in here, and we're going to add 600 grams of liquid. So we've got a tin of coconut cream, which we'll add, and then we'll top it up by 200 grams. So a tin and a half approximately. All right, so a tin, kettle's boiling in the background for morning coffee. A tin. Sonnet's going to top this up with some water for me. All right, so we'll top it up to 600 with that water, or ish. And we're going to, so we need another 50 grams of water because it just wasn't quite enough. And then we're going to add 350 grams of flour. And that is pretty much it, except that's the wrong bucket. Yeah, so 350 grams of flour. And then we'll just blend it. We want to do it on full speed, probably 5 to start with. Get it all blended, we'll scrape it down, and then we'll do it again. So we're just going to scrape all the flour down, and then we'll do it up on speed 10 to get lots of air into it. And then we've got a batter that's sort of in between a crepe batter and a pancake batter. And we will put it into the hot butter in the cast iron pan and cook it at high temperatures, sort of 220, for around about 30 minutes, but until it's all set. Alrighty, Dutch baby, favorite thing here. It's just like a custardy bake. It doesn't necessarily have much flavour, but they can add jarred fruit or maple syrup or whatever they want with it, and so that's what they do. It's stuck a little bit more than normal, but we just won't scrape it too hard with the metal. Obviously, the kids know that you don't scrape too hard with metal on these cast iron pans. All right, lunchtime on Monday. Today I have leftover risotto from the other night, and I'm going to really quickly turn this into some arancini balls. I think should be fine. The texture should be good. So I've got some leftover breadcrumbs here. These are sourdough breadcrumbs of some sort that I have frozen. So they're a bit like a panko crumb, which is always nice because it ends up crispier. I've got a cast iron pan heating up, and all I'm going to do is add, like half an inch of fat in the bottom of that. I am going to add, I'd say I've got some garlic and stuff in these breadcrumbs, which is good. And then I am going to add a bit of the faux Parmesan cheese. The kids are tolerating dairy a lot better these days. I'm still not willing to go too hard on any of it because I don't want to deal with the consequences. But it was always a thing as they got older, they should theoretically tolerate it a little bit better, so long as they don't overdo it, like anything. Sonnet has a issue with latex family fruits like bananas and stuff, and we still have issues that if we have a whole lot of bananas that were, like we got 2 boxes of bananas or something, and so they're overindulging, she has issues with it. So the plan here is to have a look at how sticky, see, I reckon this is going to be fine. So my hands are clean, and these balls are, now if I was like making them, I could stuff them with something, but I'm not going to. All I'm going to do is do this, I think. I could mix a little bit of the cheese through it, but I don't think it needs to. It's holding together well, and the whole point is just to turn the risotto into something slightly different. So all I'm going to do, and I think I'm just going to try, I don't think I'm even going to egg wash it or anything. No, see, look, nice little easy. I might wet my hands a little bit, might have a little dipping thing, and then if the outside of it is damp slightly when it goes into the breadcrumbs, I think that'll work. But basically I'm just reheating risotto as something slightly different for lunch, and I'm just going to do little balls like this, little hand, and then I could open a pizza sauce or something and we could dip them in pizza sauce or some pesto or whatever, but just repurposing a meal into something else. So this was a bacon, onion risotto, basic one, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to get these fried off and we'll see how they turn out. All right, so this was the first 2 that I tried. I've changed my mind a little bit. It's a little bit of mix of ghee and oil. Have changed my mind just a little bit on the crumbing, just to get them to stick better. So I've got a little bit of coconut cream with an egg and a tiny bit of water mixed here. And all I'm going to do is dip so I've pre-shaped some balls here, and I'm going to do a dip before going into the crumb, because I just want that crumb to be a little bit thicker to give it a little bit more protection when frying. Create a little bit of a thicker crust to protect the insides of the arancini a little bit. So I'm pretty happy with how these have turned out. Crispy on the outside, still nice and creamy on the inside. So perfect, exactly what I was looking for, something slightly different with leftovers. Alrighty, it is Monday dinner. I pulled a bunch of different things out of the freezer to defrost over the last 24 hours, and most of it hasn't defrosted as yet, but these chicken tenders have. So that's what we're doing for dinner. Not entirely sure what we're having with it yet. There is leftover brioche buns from dinner last night. There is some leftover cabbage ramen from the night before, which could be eaten with this. So we could heat up those ramen noodles and all that cabbage and stuff. There is some of the risotto balls from lunch still left. There is steamed veggies. There is, we will find something. So it's a bit of a throw together meal tonight. So that's about the limit of the defrosted ones. So we got about half that packet there. And I'm just going to do them like garlic butter like. So I'm going to put a bit of oil in this. I'm going to add some seasonings. It's a generous amount of oil in that. I'm going to add some salt, some pepper. I'll grab some paprika. I actually have a mix here. It's a bit of paprika and some thyme and oregano and things like that that I've made for something else. I'm just going to use a bit of that. And then I'm going to just fry these off really quickly in a generous amount of butter, and then I'll add some minced garlic when they're halfway done so the minced garlic doesn't burn, and we'll do them as like garlic butter tenderloins. They don't take very long to cook. You cook them too long, they dry out really badly, so it's a good way to just quickly get the butter really nice and hot in a cast iron pan, fry them off, and then add the garlic. All right, so I've got the ramen and cabbage and stuff here that I'm going to just warm through, add some more stock to if need be. They can have that with it. We've got ghee here that's warmed up really nice and hot. So I'm going to put this seasoned chicken in here, cook it for a minute or two, flip it, then I'll add some garlic. And I was thinking that we've got the lemon chung in the fridge, so once I've done the garlic butter, I might when I pull it out, toss it in a little bit of the lemon chung as well. So it doesn't take long to get mostly cooked through, so then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly move it out of the way. And we're going to add a generous amount of garlic to all this excess butter here. Probably a bit more than I intended, but that's fine. Cook that off slightly there in the butter. And then bring this chicken back to it. This is almost warmed through, and then we have leftover burger buns from last night as well, so they can have a burger bun if they want. We can warm it up in a little bit of this garlic butter. That would be nice. So let me wash this bowl out. All the garlic butter's in the bottom here, so we're going to put a drizzle of the lemon chung and give that a toss. And now we've got this really moist lemon garlic butter chicken, so that can go with the ramen and the buns, and it'll be a make do with leftovers dinner for tonight. It is Thursday dinner. Now I have missed a whole bunch of meals in this, what we eat in a week, so it's going to be approximately a week's worth of meals spread over however long it is. The days have sort of got away from me because I went to travel to get the car, and I've realised that most of my problem at the moment is that it's school holidays. So we didn't normally do set school holidays when we were doing the previous style of homeschooling, and because of that, every day was similar. But with school holidays, it's really thrown the rhythm out, and hopefully once they go back to class, we will get things moving again. So another throw together meal tonight though, because I was supposed to come out and have a catch-up day in the kitchen, and I didn't do it because children. So I got off the shelf, I have a jar of this really rich chicken stock and a jar of the chicken soup. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up the stock and put a cake of the instant noodles in it. And then once the noodles are cooked, I'll put the chicken and veg in to heat up. And I've got another pot of water boiling that I'm going to cook off some of these wontons with. So we're going to serve the sort of a chicken noodle ramen-y type soup with some of these homemade wontons. So these were made and frozen raw. So I'm just boiling pot. I'm going to bring them up to a boil, and they will cook into like soup style wontons. I don't really like steamed and fried ones from frozen, but I also bought the wrong shape papers for that too. These aren't really gyoza, they're more like a soup dumpling. So I'm going to boil these up and serve that with the soup, and Darryl and I will have whatever part of it we want to have, but that's the plan. So I'm going to get the stock heating so that I can cook the noodles off first, and I've already got a pot of water going for the dumplings. So this is my kind of version of 2-minute noodles, I suppose. And I'm just going to put, say, 3 cakes in there, and we're going to bring that up. I like to put it in when it's cold and bring it all up temperature. I find that they end up softer that way. And then I'm just going to get the water boiling as well. So the stock's up at a boil, all the noodles have separated, and so I'm going to add the rest of the soup ingredients. I could just serve it like this with the wontons, but I have this really nice chicken soup on the shelf, and it's got veggies and chicken and more flavour in it. So I'm going to add it and extend that through because I can, and because it'll just add more body to the soup. Again, this could be served just on its own, but the wontons are just going to be a little bit of an extra. So we're just going to separate those noodles out, let all the chicken and everything come up to temperature, and get these nice and soft. They're not quite cooked yet. They're separated but not quite cooked. And we'll keep cooking the wontons in the meantime. So all I'm going to do to serve it is I'm going to grab a tong full of noodles. I don't want too many, which makes it hard. Not going to make this look pretty because, again, I just don't want to put too many noodles on the plate initially. They can always come back for more. So I'm making a mess here. Okay, we got some noodles, and we've got broth and some chicken and vegetables in that as well. And then we've got some of the steamed pork dumplings like that. And I will just drizzle a bit of moisture over those, and that's what we're serving for dinner tonight. I do have some homemade sweet chili sauce as well that can be used to drizzle over the top. I don't have any soy sauce at the moment, so normally I would do soy sauce, but I don't have it, so that's fine. All right, it is Tuesday of whenever following on from the previous days. It is a Tuesday, and I pulled a bunch of stuff out of the freezer to get used. So I've pulled a whole bunch of in the hampers lately. We have another hamper coming on Saturday, and in the hampers lately we've been getting like 250 gram or 500 gram packs of just beef mince. So I pulled all those small packs out and stuck them in the fridge yesterday so that they would defrost, and we're gonna do just burgers tonight with that mince. It's not the greatest mince to use to make burgers with, but that's what we're gonna do. So I'm going to make some hamburger buns to have with that now. It's already 1 o'clock, but it should be fine. So what I'm going to do is do 720 grams of water. This recipe is up on the website. Now, I did boil the kettle, but I boiled it for coffee. So I boiled it to full heat, which I wouldn't normally do for this. I'd normally use it before it's actually boiled, but I wasn't thinking. So I've got boiling water, and I'm going to add cold water as well to bring that up to 900 grams. And then I will put the rest of that in the fridge for something else. So temperature of that is now sort of down to, you know, body temp, which is what we want for adding yeast. Otherwise we would kill our yeast. So we're just going to throw our yeast, our flour, our salt and everything in here. As I said, the recipe's on the website. It's one that I've actually got on there. All sorted flour, salt, everything in there, and we're just going to put it on to knead. Now, being a brioche dough, we're going to knead it for a good 5-10 minutes. Bring it all together, put it in a container and proof it. I'll bring you back once it's proofed and show you how I shape them. I've shown dozens of times, but these What We Eat in a Week videos tend to get a bit of a new audience too, so we will go over it again. Right, I kind of forgot that I was doing dough and got sidetracked by other stuff, but that's fine because we've got to punch it down to shape it anyway. So the brioche doughs are always soft. I say that every time, but they are a well hydrated dough, so they're a little bit sticky. Makes for a really nice soft roll though. Sonnet wants to show you Panda, so just a sec, so don't hold her over the food. So this is Panda, one of the rescues, hey? She adores Sonnet. She is very much Sonnet's cat. Like, so just stay in her lap all the time and headbutt her and stay on her shoulders, hey? All right, I'm going to rinse my hands. All right, just rinse my hands so we don't get cat fur in our buns. Though, you know, probably still get it anyway because we have, you know, as many cats as we do. 6. And using some flour to just create a skin on this so that it's easier to work with. The camera, of course, wasn't in the right spot just then because I turned it to show the cat. Anyway, we've got it into, I'll need 2 baking trays. So we've got it just a little bit easier to handle. And then I'm just going to take sort of 85 gram pieces. And the baking paper is. And shape them into balls and place them on the tray. And we're just going to do that. So we get around about 80 to 90 gram balls. And then all we're doing is we're bringing it all into the center. And then rolling it into a nice firm ball, gives it a bit of a skin, holds its shape, and then repeating the process. So I will do that with all of this, make as many rolls as I can out of it, and then they will proof a second time. And once they've done their second proof, I'll bring you back. I'll show you. I'll put an egg wash and some egg wash and some sesame seeds on them, and then they'll go in the oven. All right, had them in the oven proofing about 25 minutes, I suppose. With the hamburger buns, so I want them as flat as possible. So I'm just squishing them out a little bit. They will puff back up in the oven. They won't stay particularly flat, but I just like to give them a little bit of a, we want them fairly dense, fairly flat, because if they're too fluffy and they're too round, they just don't hold the patties and stuff as well. So egg with a tiny bit of water just to thin it out. This is purely for making it look good in the oven and for the sesame seeds to stick to. And I'm just going to grab these sesame seeds. I did that everything bagel. Let's put everything bagel on them. Super tasty. Everything bagel on my burger buns. This will be delicious. I have ordered some Nigella seeds because the everything bagel just looks so nice with the Nigella seeds mixed in as well. So I have ordered some. This is sort of all I use it for, the black sesame seeds. They don't taste much different to the white ones, but they just look really good in here. So I thought I had some left. I didn't, but I do love everything bagel and should make it far more often than I do. So I decided to order some. So there we go. Now we're just going to stick these in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes at about 180, and then they will be done. And I will bring you back for dinner time. It's 4:30, and so I've still got a little bit of time. And I pulled some bacon out to defrost yesterday, but instead of just cooking some bacon up to have on the hamburgers, I'm going to make a quick bacon jam. So I'm going to dice up some bacon and get it cooking on medium-low heat so that it renders out all the fat and gets firm but not burnt. And then I'll cut up some onions and add some other stuff. So I'm just going to get the bacon going first, and then I'll bring you back once it's done. So I'm just going to dice it sort of into little cubes, just sort of like this, and cook it off. Start it in a cold pan so that it renders out nice, not too hot. And this was 3 or 4 rashers. I'll probably do the same again, because if I'm going to spend the time to do it, I may as well do enough to put a jar in the fridge or freezer. All right, while the bacon is cooking, I am just dicing up some onion, smallish, to go in as well. Keeping it fairly small because we want it to cook off fairly quickly, because I'm limited in time because I started this fairly late. Normally you'd let this cook for a couple of hours. So we're doing a very rushed version of this, but it will still taste good. And I might let it simmer, like I might just serve it simmer and let it simmer for a bit longer afterwards, because I only thought about doing this now. So doing that, also have some big cloves of the elephant garlic to cut up for that as well. All right, so I added the onion and the garlic. Once the bacon was cooked off, I let the onions soften up and then added some coffee, some apple cider vinegar, some coconut sugar and some maple syrup. And now we're going to cook this down. You can add some chili. I might add a touch of that chili oil, actually. That would be really nice in this. And just let it cook down until it goes really nice and jammy, and you've got bacon jam. Now, I didn't follow a recipe. I threw stuff in because I'm just making a really quick one, but there is plenty of recipes around for it. So yeah, just going to cook it down until it's more like a relish, and then we will use it on the hamburgers. Alrighty, this is what the buns turned out like. They're a little overcooked because I left them in the oven after and turned it off because it was somewhere safe and enclosed. So that's what the buns turned out like. The onion jam has turned nice and jammy. It could go a little bit longer. Obviously, as I said, it can take a couple of hours to really get it to a perfect consistency, but this is very usable and we're happy with that. And cooking the patties at the moment, just beef mince with a bit of onion powder and salt, and we're just cooking them in about 90-gram patties. And I'll show you the, pardon? Sorry. And I'll show you the, I'll take a photo of them made up, and we're just doing, the kids have a platter to make their own and we'll make ours up. And this is the burgers. So we've got it's all right, meat patties, tomato, bacon jam, mayo, lettuce, very, very decadent burgers. And the kids have done the same. And that will be it. That's what I'm going to cut that off there as the what we eat in a week, or what we've eaten in a bunch of meals, or whatever. I'm going to edit this, and I might have to just come back and add a little snippet somewhere to explain something, because I don't know what I've done, but this will be the end of that one. So thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.